Hello. I wanted to give a special thanks to my new subscribers. I was at like 34 subscribers from January. Now I'm at 54. So to me, that's an achievement. I wanted to talk about elevating yourself. I was reading a book that talks about how the African American community could obtain wealth. I'm gonna put the title of the book in my bio, or at least have a link, so because I think anybody should read that book. So yesterday I was at FedEx because I'm training to do package handling until I find a better career. And I'm also here at Esther Lauderdale. So I'm per diem here. So yeah, I'm a YouTuber and also an employee. So I'll get into that. And one of the coworkers was like, I don't like change. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't like change either, but in order to succeed and become better, you have to change. For example, I just finished a 10-week training, non-paid, should I say. I had to be, in order for me to graduate, I had to complete a case study. I've never done a case study in my life. I've heard of them, but I've never done them. I didn't want to do it, but I know that the program would look good on my resume, so I just sacrificed and did research and helped my team to deliver a successful case study. And then living in the Bronx, it made me realize that there are people complacent with their situation, and there's nothing wrong with that. But me, there's nothing wrong with living in a low income housing. There's nothing wrong wanting to make 18 to 30K per year. Me, my ideal salary would be like 80K and above. I'm hoping as time goes on with my investments and even my YouTube channel, I would make more than that. The path I took before I became a YouTuber, I was chasing men and I had children early. So I did things backwards, and then I decided to go to college. Well, first I obtained my apartment and then I decided to go to college. And then I ended up taking trainings, and then I discovered I like writing, and then I love public speaking. So this is how I came about doing my YouTube channel. But then it made me realize, like, imagine if I would have just stopped at high school and stayed in the shelter. I would never had my apartment, and I wouldn't have a YouTube video or network with some successful people, because not only have I interviewed people that are successful, there are people that I network with that are successful, but they're not public. They're not in the public eye. If you have children, it's very important and vital that you leave a legacy. Money is very important. Life insurance, I understand that people can't leave a house. They can't leave millions or billions of dollars, but you can pay for a $7, $10 per month life insurance. Life insurance probably be your cheapest bill than rent, mortgage, water, food, and etc. I used to be one of those that think that the minorities struggle the most. Like there are roadblocks to deter minorities not to get ahead. Then I realized that things have changing. We're living in a time where there's people protesting. There are people and businesses now supporting minority businesses. So what is the excuse to elevate yourself? If you're going to be in a low income apartment, and I'm going to speak for New Yorkers because I live here, if you're going to be in a NYCHA building, I think you should be there 10, 20 years, save up at least $500,000 and get out. You shouldn't be driving a Benz in a NYCHA building, because the purpose of those low income buildings, you're supposed to stay there for a certain amount of years, then get out and give it to the next person. And then it rotates. That's not something that you're supposed to retiring. Of course, New York is not going to push you out, because if you're paying your rent, you can stay there as long as you want. But what people fail to realize and do not do their research, that some of these low income apartments like NYCHA, that's not a permanent living situation. Now, if you do lottery apartments, those are, but NYCHA, no. You're supposed to get out and Section 8. That's like a ladder to help you, and then after that, you pass down your voucher to somebody else in need. Now, there were some people that were on NYCHA, that were on Section 8, and they would sublease their apartments and then live elsewhere. Unfortunately, the laws cut back on it. I don't see it being a problem, because that's accumulating more wealth, but that's their rules. But hey, this message is for single moms, low income people, and minorities. Stop making excuses. There are programs there. You can go back to college. There are grants, there are financial aid. Take advantage of that, because let me tell you something. A high school diploma is not cutting it, unless you plan on working at FedEx or Amazon. If you plan on working in fast food and those factory jobs where they do labor, hands-on labor, then fine, by all means. But if you want to have a salary that's $50K and above, you need a college degree. Now, if you live in a rural area, you could get by with making a certain salary and have a house, because I've seen it happen. But then again, the cost of living in those areas are cheap. But if you're living in an urban community, that's not going to work. And you're only suffering because now you have to get a second job. I've worked 2 jobs before. I would not do it long term, because it's very tiring, and it's like at the end of the day, you're not really seeing your money. Now, there's some people that they have the 2 jobs. They use one job for their bills and the other one they spend. That is smart. But the 2 jobs that pay only bills, I wouldn't recommend anybody to do that. That's just me. There are people complaining that the prices of food have gone up, the cost of living gone up. That was bound to happen, because let me tell you something. When 2020 occurred, they were giving out stimulus money, unemployment money. Money was just being given. Granted, you work for the money, you earn the money, but that came at a price. I knew that was going to come at a price. I knew it. I just wasn't expecting for the cost of food and living to go up so high. But that's the economy for you. Investing in stocks is another way to help be more elevated in your life. I have stocks in Cash App. I had stocks in TD Ameritrade for like 4 or 5 years. I took it out because TD Ameritrade was merging with Charles Schwab. I didn't want to be with Charles Schwab, so I decided to just close that account and take whatever money I made. And then I decided to do Cash App because I use that often, you can buy stocks as little as $1. It's better to buy more because you get a better return. But there's like Robinhood, there is, if you bank with Chase, they even offer IRA retirement funds. But if you're 25 and up, it's in your best interest to have money put away. That living to paycheck is not going to cut it. Too many times you hear stories, you see people talking about they didn't have this, they weren't prepared for a funeral, they weren't prepared for losing their jobs. Like me, I was laid off March of this year. I didn't start working until this month. And I exhausted my emergency fund and savings June. So I didn't have 6 months saved up. But at least I had money saved up. And now we're in August. So that shows you that I was struggling. Again, I have nothing against borrowing money from people, but do not make that a habit. And the reason why I'm saying that, because I've had people ask me for money and whatnot. If your intentions is not to pay these people back, do not borrow. When I do borrow, I pay people back because you never know when you'll need them again. But that's not something I would make a habit of. But I see too many people that they love borrowing money from people and don't like to pay back, and then wonder why people don't want to help them. Because I've heard people say, oh, they don't have a support system, people don't help them, and it's usually because you burned your bridges. Minorities need to get out of the habit that, oh, life is hard. African American especially love to say this. Oh, they're out to get us. And it's like, if you pick up a book, you will know your rights. The laws, of course, are not in our favor. That's why I don't really too care for the laws. Now, I'm not going to go breaking all the laws, but some of these laws don't make no sense. And it wasn't until I was in my 10-week program that I realized that some of these laws are horrible. Jim Crow was one of them. Although that was the law, that wasn't in everybody's best interest. So we have to be careful when we use terms like, well, it's the law. If it's not in the Bible, we don't have to follow it. Except we have to respect our leaders and do as they say. But if their laws contradict the 10 Commandments, or you have to compromise your morals, no, don't follow that law. It is very sad that I see young people think that they have all the time in the world, they can live carelessly, and they could put stuff off. If I knew better back in the age of 21, I would have been more financially better off. I would have, instead of obtaining my 2-year degree, I would have got a bachelor's. If I knew that the bachelor's degree would have made me more marketable. But I'm sitting there trying to take the shortcut and just get the 2-year degree. I need for people to know that there's certain things in life you can't take a shortcut. You might as well just go through the process or don't do it at all. Because with success is a step, is no shortcut, unless you have a silver spoon in your mouth and you're given money. Those are the only people that can take shortcuts in life because they have financial wealth. Their family left them a legacy. Other people, you can't do that. So you have to go through the process. But we need to stop making excuses. There's the library, which is free. You can read a book and find information. You don't need to ask people for help. And if you do, make sure that you're going to networking opportunities where people get paid and they can help you. Stop asking people that are not successful for help. That's another thing. How you ask somebody for help and they're not successful? They're struggling and they don't have their life together. Mm-mm. Stop doing that. No. Being self-sufficient, it's nothing wrong with that. It's not. It's okay to need assistance in life, but to be relying on other people, that's a no. I say that because there's a few people I know, whenever I talk is because I've watched situations occur or I've lived it. I am appreciative of the welfare system, but that's another system that there are pros and cons. The longer you're on it, you become comfortable, you don't want to work. Like, for example, I have a few female associates that are afraid to get a high paying job. Mind you, they have the skills, they're not disabled. But because they're afraid they might have to pay rent, they rather not take that job. And I'm like, if I'm making 60K a year, best to believe I'm going to hold on to my food stamps, but I'm going to take my job's health care benefits. I'm going to take that 401k. I'm going to get a better apartment. Because you can still get welfare benefits. And keep in mind, because people love to say that, oh, we're paying for welfare people and they're just leeching off the government. If you work, even if it's part-time, you're entitled to welfare because that's money that you put in. Just so you know, they're afraid to elevate themselves because they're like, well, if I work this job, they'll take my food stamps. If I work this, they'll raise my rent. So why would you want to stay in poverty until your child is 18? Because then you have some women that will take odd jobs, won't work until the child is older, but then life happens and now you don't have money put aside because you thought that welfare money was going to stretch. There have been instances where I work part-time and collect welfare. I live in New York. Rent is high. Middle class people have food stamps. The Jewish community has food stamps. People don't want to talk about that. The Jewish community, which they have a lot of wealth, they own the majority, if not all, the buildings in New York. They use welfare. So, but if you're going to use welfare, make sure that you have a job that pays well. That's not something that you can live off from. I don't want to. I've tried it. The most they give me is $400 a month. My household has 4 people. Yeah, that $400 a month is not going to stretch. So of course I have to work. Now, I do know in certain states they're giving out unemployment benefits still. Cool. If you get unemployment every week, because the majority of people don't get paid every week, they get paid every 2 weeks. Why not set $10 to $20 a week aside into a savings fund? And if you don't have a job that has 401k, you can set up an IRA account. You can buy Jordans, if you could pay for a Beyonce concert, Taylor Swift concert, or any concert of your choice, you should have money saved. Look, my nails are not done, my hair is natural. I'm okay with that because guess what? What I'm not going to do is go broke trying to look presentable, because the only time I need to look presentable is for a job. So that whole hair weave thing, the rainbow colors, you have to be mindful when you're working a certain position. You can't come into people's jobs like that. Now, if you're doing retail, by all means, but in a corporate setting, you have to look away and the natural look. Now, if you want to add makeup and whatnot, but I say that because a lot of women, they have a heart attack. Like, they have to get their nails done every 2 weeks. That's like paying an unnecessary bill. You could get your nails done once a week and you'll be fine. Your hair, you could do your hair yourself. You really don't have to go to the salon every 2 weeks. Now, again, if your income bracket is high, by all means, pamper yourself every week. But I'm talking about those that are middle class and poor that cannot afford to be in a salon every 2 weeks. It is not that serious. I'm appalled because I used to think people that wear certain name brand stuff, they have money, but they don't. Those are the ones that will beg. And I have to look like, and I try not to judge because, again, they could have bought that stuff when they had money. But a lot of times when people talk, they throw themselves under the bus. And once you start telling me that you like to use people and you have to spend this money, I'm not helping you, because let me tell you something. You can't afford to go broke impressing friends. You can afford to create a GoFundMe page because you decided not to have life insurance, which is, again, as little as $5 or $7 a month, which is less than the $200 that you spent for a McQueen, or $500. I don't know, because that's not my taste. I'm for Rainbow and the Goodwill. That's my choice. That's what I prefer to spend my money on. But if I was to become successful, I think I would stay that way, because that's a habit. I've always been frugal. That's my habit. I plan to stay that way. And also, when you know better, you do better. I hope the takeaway from this video is that as minorities, and even if you're not a minority and you're listening to my video, if you know someone that has poor money management, help them if they want to be helped, because not everybody wants to be helped. But take advantage of Fidelity, Chase. Some of them, Fidelity and Chase, I know for a fact, have like free webinars where they help people manage their money. I know in New York and maybe some major cities, they have Workforce One has people that will help you not only obtain a career, a job, but they'll help you with your finances. They'll help you budget. So you can go in, because if you're collecting unemployment, one of those requirements is that you have to job search. So more than likely you have to have some type of Workforce One center or something equivalent to a Workforce One that you could go into, and they'll help you manage your finances. I noticed that there's a lot of videos about buying a house. I don't have no interest buying a house. I will buy one cash, but I don't want to pay a mortgage. I can't afford one. I would like to own property. I do have a portfolio where I put money in, or was putting money in to, and I'm part owner of property. All of that stuff I did was through researching. Because when I got the unemployment money, which I knew wasn't gonna last, I was like, what am I gonna do with this $600 that I get every week? So I wanted to have money put aside. It is very imperative that if you have investments, that you have a will. If you're married or you have children, yes, they're entitled to your money, but if you don't have a will, no, they're not. You know who gets that money? The state. So, and the reason why I know this because I went to a panel of a hip hop artist. He died, and his wife and children were talking. And mind you, she's legally married. She had to fight for her husband's estate. The guy that died from Ellen DeGeneres, the DJ, Twitch, I think his name is. He's married. He has children. The wife is fighting for his estate because he didn't have a will. Now, with a will, you have to have a power of attorney that costs money. All you have to do is type up a will, get it notarized at a notary, put that in a document. Somebody you know where that document is, and you have it there. Or give it to a trusted relative, friend, family member. But you have to have a will. Because just because that person is a spouse or a child, they're not entitled to the money. You don't have a will, it's basically your title to that loved one does not mean anything if you don't have a will. If higher class people are having issues with their finances or leaving a will, this video is one of the reasons why it's being made today. It's very sad that people have to fight for an estate. But then again, I noticed that there's not a lot of education on obtaining a will. Again, there's people that don't want to pay the money or cannot. I understand that. Me, I have a will. I send my will off to an email to two people that I trust. It's notarized. They have it so that there's no arguing. There's no fighting. Not saying that people won't fight because there's people that will fight. But at least if you have a will and it's notarized, notice that I put an emphasis that is notarized because you cannot type up a document and sign off on it. It has to be notarized because it ensures that the document is, what's the term I want to say? The document is, it's more presentable, like it's legal binding. That's the word I'm looking for. When you, certain papers, like even when you're in court, they have a notary, they get something stamped because it just makes it more honest, and I want to say you're less likely if you have a notarized document, you can't alter it. You can't really tweak it. Once it's notarized, you can't change it. You can't alter it. So having something notarized, if you cannot pay for a power of attorney, you have that stamp and that notarized document, you're good. Life is already hard. Life already presents its own challenges. Let's not make life harder for ourselves. Try to gain knowledge, whether it's reading or being surrounded by people that are successful. Network at events. I go to free events. People think that I pay money for events. No. I go there. If I know who's going to be there, I make sure that I network with them. Because again, I don't know everything. And I make sure when I network with people, I share the information because I know that not a lot of people have that information. I'm shocked that they don't have it, but it's understandable because there are people that withhold information. And it's sad because that's another reason why people, it's hard for them to elevate themselves because you have people that they know the information don't want to share.